I know that when I started making art as a hobby, the cost of art supplies quickly started to add up. It can be difficult when supplies and paints and things are so expensive. Also, if you're selling your work, you want to make sure that you are making a profit from your painting. So in that case, it's also important to be keeping an eye on how much you're spending and looking for ways that you can save money without compromising the end result of your art. And that is particularly important when you are building up an art business. So it's about choosing where you spend your money wisely. So let's get into some of my tips. So the first tip I have for you is to be smart about your paints. When I say that, there are a few things that spring to mind straight away. First of all, have a think about working with a limited palette. You can save money by not having to buy all of the colors. You'll see that I do that a lot. I plan my palettes and I intentionally go out and purchase colors that relate to the work that I want to create. So, limited palette, mix your own colors, and then think about whether or not there are any more affordable brands of paint or pigments of paint that you can use in the early layers. So sometimes what I do is I keep the more expensive paints for later on, and I use something that's more affordable when I start a painting. This is a Matisse brand colored gesso. It's affordable because it is a gesso rather than an artist quality paint, and I use this to block in and get color down, particularly when I'm working on a large canvas. I also just get tubs of gesso and I tint them with a color and use them for background paint too. So that is a way of saving money by using something like gesso in your early layers and then saving your quality paints. So things like this that are more expensive, this is an artist grade fluid paint, or something like, I don't have anything else around me at the moment, but your golden paints and things like that for the final layers. Mediums are another great way that you can extend your paint. I use glazing fluid a lot and build up my work with glazes. And when you use glazing fluid, and I'll give you an example of the one that I use, so this is the golden glazing fluid. When you use something like this, you don't need much paint with it in order to create enough paint to put a layer down. So this is a way of extending your paint as well. My final tip around paints is not to buy the big sets, and this applies to mixed media supplies as well. I would only suggest buying a big set if it is on special, you're getting an amazing deal, or you really truly think that you're going to use all the colors. Because what I have found is when I buy big sets of things, I tend to just hone in on a few colors and they run out quickly and the rest just sit there looking pretty and not getting used. So I am much more about hand picking individual supplies based on something that I actually want to create or something that I have in mind. So when I go to the art shop, I look at the supplies and I think about what would I actually use it for. I think it's really useful to actually have a project that you are working towards or something that you want to create and buy supplies around that. Hard to do, but very, very helpful if you want to save some money. Tip number 2 is to paint on a smaller scale. There is no denying that if you paint big canvases, you are going to go through piles and piles of paint and it quickly adds up. And if you're not yet sure about what you're painting, this can be very frustrating because you can end up with a whole lot of unfinished works of art and not much money left in your bank account. So I would suggest working on a smaller substrate, little mini canvases, or even a sketchbook, something like this size, small paper pieces. Mini works are fantastic for building your skills and developing your style. So although it's lovely to go big, it's expansive, it's free, you can always put that aside for a little bit and focus on some smaller works until you feel really confident and ready to go big, and maybe you've saved up a bit of money in your bank account as well. My third tip is to identify which items are your investment items. So which supplies are you willing to spend money on because you know it makes a difference. It helps improve the quality of your art, because Not all supplies are created equal, and in some circumstances, you are kind of shooting yourself in the foot if you use the cheaper supplies, because it becomes very difficult to create something that has that high-end finish or quality finish at the end. So for me, when it comes to investment items, I generally buy high quality paints, artist grade paints, particularly like watercolor, the fluid acrylic paints. These are all artist quality paints, and I find that my paintings have a much better finish when I am using these. The other thing that I'm very passionate about is a good quality paper, especially if you are doing watercolor work. So I would definitely recommend investing in quality watercolor pads, notebooks, because it dramatically affects the end result of your work. So they're my splurge items. When it comes to areas where I try and save, it's usually things like pastels. And I have quite a lot of pastels that I bought back when I was doing art journaling. And they are, for example, this is a Portfolio brand. These are very affordable. I've even got some that my children used to use. This is what is this? Micador or something like that. I'm pretty sure these are pastels I bought for my kids, and I love them and I still use them. So everyone's different, of course, but for me, pastels are often the area where I don't spend quite so much. It really comes down to getting to know your supplies and what you enjoy. And when you know what you enjoy, then you can focus in on that and buy in bulk when you see the items that you love on sale. With brushes is a good example, because I have quite a lot of brushes, but I know that I find myself reaching for only one or two different types of brushes that I use for the majority of my painting. So once you know what brushes you like, then you can focus in on buying more of those and not buying brushes that are just going to sit in your studio and never get touched. I'll show you the brushes that I love to use. I've got a few that I would always look out for deals on. So I like these brushes here. These are flat brushes by Langnickel. I've been really enjoying those. I have got these ones, which you can probably tell have been much loved, and I think I might have to check this. I think these are Dinah Wakely brushes, but I enjoy these. They're firm. They're really firm, which I like for pushing the paint around. So I know what I like, and I'm able to hone in on that and order those supplies when I see good opportunities, which is another tip for you. Sign up to your chosen art supplies store. Get their emails so that you know when things are on sale, because art supplies are often offered at heavy discounts. So there are times when you can get paints for 50% off, canvases for 50% off. So these are the times when you want to snap up and buy those things. So my last tip for you is to consider using unconventional surfaces for your art. So you don't always have to go out and spend money on substrates, because substrates are actually one of the areas where it really starts to add up. One of the things you could think about doing was painting on something like old book pages or altered books that you get from the charity store. You can use gesso to prepare the pages. So gesso is a very magical ingredient in any artist's toolkit, because you can take, this is a white gesso, but I also really love clear gesso. You can apply this to paper, it'll prime your surface, and then you can paint on it. So if you've taken my minimal magic class, you'll know all about using old book pages, and I thought I'd just share here with you that I've got some pages here taken out of books that I've used to test out colour palette ideas. I would then use these in my paintings as collage pieces. So there's lots of different ways that you can take an old book and use it in your art. I also keep paintings that perhaps I haven't fully resolved yet. I keep them, and I will paint over paintings if I'm not happy with them. Even if they're a watercolor painting like this one, what I might do if I'm not happy with it as a watercolor painting is actually use this as a base for an acrylic painting. So this I would then add more layers to and build it up. So I keep all these sorts of paintings so that I can either paint over them, or the other tip is to cut them up and use them as collage pieces in your work. So it could be useful to have some drawers, a basket, or a folder for all your kind of unfinished pieces or things that you're not sure about. Hang on to them and see if you can repurpose them. So in a nutshell, be smart about the paints that you use. Consider working on a smaller scale using sketchbooks or mini canvases. Identify what your investment supplies are going to be and what are your budget supplies. Edit down your tools and identify what your favorite brushes are and things like that so that you can snap them up and bulk buy when they're on sale. Sign up for notifications from your local art shop so you know when they're on sale. And don't be afraid of using old paintings for either like collage materials or just painting over the top of them and reinventing them and being creative about how you approach your work. Well, that's it for this week's vlog. I hope you found that helpful, and I'd love to hear what some of your budget tips are. So leave a comment below and share what you do in order to save money on your art supplies.